This targeting strategy got this ecom brand to scale to $500,000 per month with profit margins of around 25%. In this video, we're going to first go over the exact results of this client. Second, show you the exact strategy we used. Third, I'm going to show you the exact actionable next steps that you need to take in order to apply this and scale your e-commerce brand with this targeting strategy. And fourth, I'm just going to go over the common mistakes I'm seeing people do, and that way you don't need to waste money and effort into things that you can just learn for free. So first things first, let's go over the results. Okay, so this was the first month of working with this e-commerce brand. As you can see, they were making 100K per month, and they were actually consistently making over 100K per month. In fact, in one of the best months of the year, they made over 200K on that month. And the first thing we did was to change the way they were doing the targeting, which is what I'm about to show you. And this is what happened. And now this year, we started making 600K in the first month in January. And this is again after Q4. And if we look at the last few months as well, it has been really positive. Let's look at March, around 600K again. And last month was almost 600K again, but for sure over $500,000 per month at a very healthy ROAS at the same time. And the reason why this is not higher is because every month we are selling out and we cannot scale more because we do not have the inventory. So these are the kinds of results that you can have if you start implementing this targeting strategy that I'm going to go over today. Okay, so now we're going to go over the exact strategy that we use to go from 100K per month to 600K per month. And in 2025, what a lot of people get wrong is they think that targeting still happens with the media buying or with the ad account segmentations. And that could not be further from the truth. In 2025, you target your ideal audience with the messaging of your creatives. Let me explain. Okay, so this is a visual representation of how targeting works in 2025, okay? When you're creating ads for your e-commerce brand, what you want to do is create ads that appeal to bigger audiences, okay? And the circle size represents the size of the audience your ad messaging appeals to. In other words, is the messaging is what dictates how scalable your ads are. So let's dive deep into what this is. As you can see, the red ad number 5, that is an ad that has the broadest messaging of them all. Now, that is what top of funnel ads usually look like, right? Even though it's one ad, it captures more spend than all the green and all the yellow or orange ads combined, right? Now, the blue ads are also top of funnel ads, but they don't appeal to the same size of audience as the red ad. And as you start creating top of funnel ads, you're gonna have ads that appeal to different audience sizes. So this is just a way to visually understand how the messaging works. So let's go into the 2 ways of scaling your brand with this type of messaging and targeting. So number 1 is if you want to scale, you can scale vertically, right? Which is you take a bigger piece of the pie. And number 2 is you just take more pieces of multiple pies. So I'm going to go over the first one, which is vertical scaling. This is what it looks like. Imagine you have your ad account under a CBO ad campaign. That means that the algorithm is basically deciding where to put the budget, right? And as you allow the algorithm to decide, you're going to start to see that there are ads that have way more spend than others. And there's going to be one ad or 2 or 3 ads that take up like 80% of the whole ad account's budget. And those are the top of the funnel ads, basically the red and the blue ads. And this is what it looks like. Let's say that you were targeting audience number 1, right? In order to scale, you need to just take a bigger piece of that audience, right? You need to appeal to a bigger group of people within that audience, within your target audience. And how do you do that? You do it by creating red ads and blue ads. Ads that with their messaging appeal to a broader group of people within that target audience. Now, the problem that I see all the time with a lot of e-com brands is that their ad account, when I take a look at them and when I do an audit, it looks something like this, right? It has a bunch of ads that are just talking about their product, about retargeting messaging, about messaging that doesn't really appeal to anyone unless they already know their product, and that is not scalable. And then they're complaining that they're getting creative fatigue and they're seeing diminishing returns every time they scale the budget, right? And the reason why is because they don't have scalable ads, and they get these scalable ads by creating ads that appeal to a bigger audience by having broader messaging. So that is vertical scaling. And then horizontal scaling is basically you just create ads that are scalable in different target audiences. Now, in my agency, what we do is we try to create ads that are both scalable vertically and horizontally. That way, we're talking to a broader group of that target audience, but not only that target audience, but we're also appealing to multiple audiences, which allows us to scale without seeing diminishing returns. That's how we took that brand from 100K per month to over 600K per month. And the only reason why we're not beyond that, why we're not at $1 million per month yet, is because we just don't have the inventory. It's not because the ads are not scalable or because we cannot scale. It's just because we're lacking the inventory. And that's the place where you want to be as a business owner, where the bottleneck is your inventory, not your marketing. Okay, so in today's video, we're gonna go over a brand that's doing this really, really well. And this brand is Space Goods. If you don't know what this brand, you probably are living under a rock, but anyways, it's a multiple 8 or even 9-figure brand that sells basically an alternative, a natural or healthy alternative to coffee, right? And the way they do their ads is a great place to learn how to do scalable creatives, because they know that what scales their brand is the big idea that this is a replacement of coffee, right? A natural, more healthier replacement of coffee. And that is the message that appeals to a very, very big audience, right? Like the red audience. And the way they create their ads on the formats, the angles, the concept as a whole, the hooks, tells you how scalable each ad is. And I'm gonna show you a couple of ads so that you can start to see the differences. But this is very important that you see what are the differences between a top of the funnel ad that is very scalable and a bottom of funnel ad that isn't that scalable but still going after the same message. What are their differences and what makes one ad more scalable than the other? Yeah, let's start with the scalable ads. Usually during the first 3 to 5 seconds, you can see the messaging and you can see how scalable that ad is going to be. So let's go over each ad.
Hi Mom, I brought you a little gift. Now don't freak out when you see it says mushrooms. It's like an upgraded coffee, and let me tell you, when it comes to staying energized and focused, it's the best thing since sliced bread. No crashes in the evening and no jitters. Anyway, I hope you like it. Bye!
So very organic, doesn't really feel like an ad, feels like a funny video, and that's probably why it's scaling, because it's while having the messaging that they know works, which is like a alternative to coffee with mushrooms. It's also like a very good first impression to the customer about what the mechanism, what the solution as a whole is. So yeah, let's look at the second one.
So you're telling me if I drink this instead of coffee, that it's going to wake me up all the same, it's going to kick me into focus mode, make me feel like $1 million, all without any jitters, any crashes, all for £1.30? You've got it. Okay, you're going to have to explain all this because it sounds like magic to me.
So I can see this brand clearly hired an actor to dress like a doctor, and they pretended to be on a podcast. And I think this is very scalable because, first of all, the podcast format is a format that people are used to consuming, right? They are going to consume with open arms. They're not going to think that they're getting sold something. And at the same time, it feels like it's an educational type of content instead of a piece of content that's just trying to sell, right? An ad. And the guy, the hook, it's explaining everything you need to know about what they sell. Not necessarily the product, but the solution, right? That is a problem-aware ad that is probably very scalable. And they're probably using it to go over a big, big audience, which is, first of all, the audience that consumes podcasts. And second of all, the audience that drinks coffee, which is a humongous audience, right? So yeah, probably very scalable. Now, let's take a look at other scalable ads that are probably not as scalable. And by the way, I don't really know for sure if these are less scalable than the other ones. I just have a feeling that these are a little bit, not as scalable because a little bit more into a niche audience.
Your brain on coffee versus your brain on adaptogens. Coffee was like sipping anxiety in a cup, but rainbow dust is something that's feels like flying in terms of, creativity, focus, and long-lasting energy. It has mushrooms.
The reason why I still think this is scalable is because the format is appealing to a younger audience, because this is a format that is very popular in a younger demographic. And at the same time, it doesn't really look that salesy. It doesn't really look like an ad. It looked like an organic, humorous piece of content that is educating on the thing, right? Now, because of the format and because this is a format that, is probably not as scalable as the other two, or maybe not as popular on a very broad demographic, I think this is a little bit less of a scalable ad, but it still qualifies to be a scalable ad because it's just talking to the problem-aware audience, right? It's not necessarily talking to those who understand already what the product is. It's educating people and taking them through the top of the funnel to the middle of the funnel. Let's look at this one.
Our women over 40 reclaim their mental clarity. I said goodbye to brain fog. I said goodbye to bloating. I said goodbye to how horrible coffee made me feel, and I switched to rainbow dust forever. So many people that switched to rainbow dust said it helped improve memory, mood, energy.
Okay, so this ad, I think it's also a scalable ad because it's talking about very relatable problems for women, right? Like bloating and other problems you saw there, but it's basically qualifying your customer. It's probably not as scalable as the other ones, but it's still a very good first impression to the solution that they're selling, which is this is a natural, better way of all the benefits that coffee has, but just in a healthier way. And ends up being a little bit salesy, which I think is probably a mistake from Space Goods itself. But this ad is probably a scalable ad, but not as scalable as the others because it's really just talking to women. And at the same time, it becomes a little bit more salesy at the end. So as you can see, the pattern here is that in the beginning, they never look like an ad. They never feel like you're getting sold something. And that is very scalable. A lot of e-com brands out there, when I look at their ad account and I look at their whole media mix, all their ads feel like they're already selling something to you. That is not scalable on social media. The algorithm hates that, right? That's not a great first impression for someone who doesn't even know the problem that your product solves. So let's take a look at the retargeting creatives. And as you can see, the format already changed a lot. But the us versus them to me is a retargeting creative because, first of all, the messaging is already bottom of the funnel, okay? Even though it's still comparing solutions, right now it's not comparing too much of the solution, but it's more like the product itself, which makes it more on the solution or even product aware audience. First of all, it's comparing the old me versus the new me. And of course, with a very relatable problem people have, but at the same time, it's positioning the product as a solution, right? Not necessarily selling the solution. It's already selling you the product and is giving you a discount, right? Or an offer, right? Which is probably appealing to the people who already know the product, but they just need a little bit of a push, right? To convince them to make the purchase. And then we go into the second one, which is, it's not really selling you anything. It's just giving you the awareness or the reminder of what you were interested in, right? So this ad may appeal to those who have already watched a lot of top of funnel or scalable ads that went through the funnel and they just need that little reminder to go ahead and buy the product. These two ads may be converting at a very high ROAS, but maybe not having a lot of spend to it because they're probably not scalable ads. They're probably not appealing to audiences that don't know what Space Goods is. They're appealing to people who already know that they want this replacement to coffee, and at the same time that they are already aware of Space Goods as a whole. Now, in order to apply this targeting strategy correctly, this is what you should focus on. 90% of your focus on the day-to-day activities of creating new ads should be on scalable content, okay? Content that is going to allow you to increase budget without really seeing diminishing returns. This is exactly what we did with that brand in order to 6x the business, if not 10x the business in the following months, because we just created a lot of ads that were scalable. And we just kept increasing spend and we never really saw any diminishing returns. And then of course, as you start to create more scalable ads and you start to increase the budget, you start to also have a bigger funnel, which means you need more assets for them to convert to all these people that were interested. So I also recommend leaving 10% of your focus to bottom of funnel ads that are purely statics or simple videos that appeal to the people who are already aware of your product. The scalable ads are going to make your ad account more scalable, and the bottom of funnel ads are going to make your ad account more profitable. Now, usually the profitability has a little bit more to do with the offer and your unit economics than the bottom of funnel ad. But again, you can still get some little wins by having good bottom of the funnel ads. At the end of the day, this is what your funnel or customer journey looks like. Scalable ads are doing the heavy lifting. And all these scalable ads are actually just first impressions to your solution or product that lead to the thing that you already proven to convert, right? And then the bottom of funnel ads are just simple assistance to the people who need a little bit more convincing. And the more scalable ads you get, the more money you get, because the more people you get to convert. Now we're going to talk about the next actionable steps so that you can start to achieve this level of scalability with your e-commerce brand. So step number one is you need to be able to identify what I call the big idea. Now, the big idea is this idea that has been proven to get people to understand what you sell. And by the way, when I say what you sell, I don't really mean the product you sell, but it's like the overall thing you sell, aka the solution. Now, in the example of Space Goods, the big idea is basically that they're selling a better alternative, a better, more natural and healthier alternative to coffee. And you can basically get the same benefits by having their product. So the big idea is just a better alternative to coffee. And with every single brand we work with, there's always a big idea, right? An idea that you can basically summarize in one line, and that's how people will describe whatever you sell. Step number one, you need to be able to identify what that big idea is, because at the end of the day, you know your brand like no one else, and your customers think simpler. They think in a one-line statement, and that is the big idea. You need to be able to understand what they perceive your solution to be. Number two, you need to be able to identify the formats that your audience is already consuming content in. As you can see for Space Goods, they created scalable ads in content formats that they knew their audience is already consuming in. As an example, the podcast styled ad, which is a format that a lot of people already consumes content in, and they are probably not expecting an ad to come out of a podcast clip. Step number three is you want to identify the winning angles. Now, how do you do this? You go through your competitors, you go through viral content on social media, and you go to your ad account and you look at all the patterns that are repeating themselves on all these places, and those are your winning angles. Now, if you want to learn a little bit more about how to do this step, I have a whole video on exactly how we do it with our clients, so feel free to check it out or in the description. Now, step number four is you want to create a list with all these ideas. That list should have content with winning angles, winning hooks, winning formats, and basically any winning elements that you see either on competitors, your ad account, or just viral videos on the internet that you could just take and make it a video of yours. Now, you want to make a list of at least 10 creatives of things that have already proven to work. And by things, I mean, yeah, the angles, the hooks, the formats, all that, right? And once you have that, step number five is you want to start creating the content. However, you're not just creating content. You're creating content that has a lot of evidence. You're creating evidence-based content. You're no longer guessing. You're just creating content purely on things that have been already proven to work. And again, everything we're doing here is getting evidence of how to create content that appeals to a scalable audience. And that is how we're going to be able to target with the creatives we make. Now, next, I'm going to go over a couple of mistakes you want to avoid when creating this content. So number one, and I see a lot of people doing this mistake, is you don't want to make it salesy. Okay, whenever you create a scalable piece of content and the messaging is right, the hook is right, the format is right, but you make it salesy, you kill all its potential to be scalable, because nobody really likes to get sold, and people immediately understand that this is a transactional piece of content and there's no value behind it. So they just scroll and you lose their attention, and basically you just wasted a lot of time and effort into creating a piece of content that's not going to work. Second, if you want to create scalable ads, you do not want to promote your product. You want to promote a solution. You know, I've scaled brands to up to $4 million per month. And whenever I see the ads that are scaling the ad account, they barely talk about the product. They're always talking about the problem or the solution, but they're never really talking about the product, the features, the benefits of it. It's just a matter of talking about the solution and how it's going to change the viewer's life. These ads need to contain the relevant information for your audience, and in the top of the funnel, knowing about your product is actually not relevant. For that, we have the bottom of funnel ads, but not for the scalable content. And then mistake number 3 is your creative takes too long to get to the big idea. If you see space goods ads, they take very little time to get to the big idea, being this is an alternative to coffee. It has to be quick so that it attracts the right people and it attracts the right scalable audience. I see a lot of people creating content that's very sophisticated and it takes a lot of time to get to the big idea, and that's killing their ads. And then they're wondering why it's not working. And the truth is, it all happened during the hook. If you cannot put the big idea on the hook, then the probability of your ad winning and being a scalable ad is very, very low. So yeah, those are the 3 major mistakes to avoid when creating content. And having said that, if you enjoyed this video and if you have an e-commerce brand that you want to scale to 100, 200, even 500K per month, and you're just struggling to create content, you're struggling to do media buying, to create offers, product flywheels, whatever it is, I have a community of e-commerce brands where we basically help each other build together. E-commerce can be very, very lonely, and there are so many mistakes that you can just avoid by surrounding yourself with the right people and knowing certain pieces of information that maybe a lot of other people went through and made mistakes on, and you can just get to learn for free, right? And I have a community of people who are building together their own brands. And if you want to be part of this community, I'm going to leave a link in the description below so that you can schedule a call with me to see if you qualify to be part of this community so that we can help each other grow together. Having said that, I hope you enjoyed this video and see you in the next one.